At the end of the day, the media, in my opinion, that was very silent on Xbox's slow rise to take over this whole gaming market, or I guess I'll say the tax, experts that pretty much downplayed Xbox's moves are going to go back and still benefit from all of what Xbox may right now be experiencing on the positive. Those who I think have not necessarily been fully informed are now sitting wondering what in the world is going on. Or maybe, at the end of the day, the signs were all there and nobody really wanted to say anything. Cat Bailey of IGN writes, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, biggest Call of Duty launch ever, sets new single-day Game Pass sub record. That's not even my interest, is what actually opens up this particular article. Satya Nadella says Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was the biggest Call of Duty release ever, setting new day one, and opening weekend records as sales on PlayStation and Steam jumped 60% compared to 2023's Modern Warfare 3. So again, it appears that this particular conversation of game sales still boils down to those on the PlayStation side are still carrying out their regular behavior. And I think that's what we expected. Not like I think, it's exactly what we expected. We expected that somewhere, somehow, when it all came down to it, that those who enjoyed playing Call of Duty were going to stick with playing Call of Duty regardless. The data sets that came out from the whole FTC trial and so on and so forth still gives us a little bit more in terms of confidence, telling us that, hey, by the way, about 1 million plus people at this point possibly spend 100% of their time on PlayStation playing Call of Duty. And then the other data set, about maybe 6 point something million spend about 70% of their time in terms of all they play playing Call of Duty. They probably play FIFA to kind of break up the monotony, but then they go back to Call of Duty again. So the game being multi-platform, in my opinion, is one that is without question and has always needed to pretty much be the thing. It should have been the standard. So all the talk about, PlayStation's executives thinking or maybe signaling that it was going to be about an exclusivity play was just to try to delay the deal or stall the deal or maybe destroy the deal. Like, it was quoted that Jim Ryan reportedly said that he just wanted to, pretty much block the merger. But apparently he wasn't powerful enough to do so. And now the inevitable has come, full circle. In light of this, you're also seeing articles pretty much saying, PlayStation, you need to step it up from the same IGN. Although from another author where Matt Kim writes, PlayStation urgently needs to rethink its live service strategy after Concord's failure. Why? Why does PlayStation need to rethink its live service strategy? What could be going on here? Well, I guess the writing's always been on the wall. When you look at the best of Steam 2023, not only are you going to see Starfield as being in the platinum list, like we had talked about, and also you're going to be greeted on the silver and bronze list by 2 PlayStation Live Service games, one being Sea of Thieves and the other one being Age of Empires. It's very interesting nonetheless, though, to see now this is what people are probably going to write about here in a little bit. I mean, what has Xbox been doing in the background? I guess positioning themselves, innovating, waiting for the right opportunity for something to come their way. And apparently it did come their way as PlayStation pushed the market so far to its own anti-consumer ways, trying to destroy Xbox. In the meantime, it seems like a lot of it backfired because again, you pretty much put Microsoft in the position where they threw their weight behind Xbox. And apparently that weight is heavier than pretty much all of Sony Corp. Now, what do you think PlayStation is going to do in this particular regard? They have one of maybe a few options that we know of. They may have another option that we don't know of. We don't know all of their business, intricacies. I mean, obviously, we're here on YouTube, right? However, we know 2 of them. One of them is the single-player Qualita games. The other one is their push for live services. Thankfully, they're a public company, so these things have been disclosed. And one of them is the single-player games that are very expensive. So it's either they go back to expensive single-player games with a high risk level, or they bury down on the remaining live service games that they had promised. We'll go ahead and read a little bit of Cat Bailey's article. I said Cat Bailey's article, Matt Kim's article, so that we can see what Matt Kim might be suggesting. Who knows? There might be some nuggets in there that PlayStation could glean. Matt Kim says, after years of console domination, we're starting to see cracks in the PlayStation brand as it tries to brute force its way towards live service supremacy. Bro, they haven't even established any footing that can be of note in live service. This is not me roasting PlayStation. This is just a critical fact. Let's reiterate that again. For someone to say they're trying to brute force their way to supremacy means that they're probably in the running. They're not. Ubisoft is prettier than PlayStation in live service. EA is prettier. And I mean, yeah, sitting prettier than PlayStation in live services. Rockstar is prettier than PlayStation in live services. Okay? If we Epic Games, like everybody you can throw, Bethesda is prettier, I guess, even they, than PlayStation in the live service area. So we're not looking at supremacy yet, because this is how these articles usually go. They start out by overshooting instead of bracing the reality properly so that we can know what's going on. I know y'all feel the need to just want to always play PlayStation or whatever, but will we ever talk about reality? You make those of us that try to say what is on the paper and the reality look like we're crazy. There's no clearer example of this than the high-profile failure of Concord and the closing of Firewalk Studio. This week, PlayStation announced that it was shuttering Firewalk Studio, a developer found in 2018 that Sony acquired just last year. The reason for the acquisition and closure of the same, Concord, a live service PvP hero shooter released on PS5 and PC, developed by creatives who cut their teeth on games like Destiny and Call of Duty. Okay, to be perfectly frank, Concord bombed. Wow. According to Steam database, player counts on PC never broke 1,000. Estimated sale figures along PS5 and Steam were abysmal. At the time of its disastrous launch, I laid out reasons why Concord failed to land, including 8 years spent in development that caused it to completely miss the hero shooter trend that was kickstarted by Team Fortress 2 in 2007 with Overwatch and peaked with Overwatch in 2016. I doubt that that's the only reason. Gamers who know. Now, what they're trying to say here is the quite straightforward mistake is compounded by Concord's exorbitant development cost. My dude, you see, many of you that are in the press, you were quick to exacerbate the whole issue of wages being fair to developers. It's good if wages go up so that developers can be paid their fair wages. However, I think what we're seeing today is that the maverick mindset, or should I call it maverick mindset, or I guess the grit and gruff mindset that old school devs had to put together some really crazy games, I think that mindset is largely frowned upon. Let me give you a story. Greg Capullo, those of us in the superhero space, if you know anybody, it's Greg Capullo or maybe Jim Lee, was talking about how sometimes doing what's necessary to achieve good results is not easy. There are sacrifices that need to be made. You got to work really hard. Do you know that this guy that is literally a legend in comic art was getting dragged by a lot of these little stay on mommy's bottle babies that I have to say, man, this is very annoying because I have to motivate students every day. Okay. So for me to see adults talking like this, I was a little heated, but I just kind of sat back and watched, especially in a time where motivation, especially for young people, is at an all-time low after we came back from the health issue in 2020. And I'm looking at these grown folk pretty much saying, well, this is unhealthy. This is this and that's that. And I'm like, whoever achieved anything great and had to worry about all of this nonsense y'all are worried about? Like, do you know how many people fell in the advancement of some of the things that you enjoy today? But off my soapbox, I don't think a lot of the developers in today's day and age are actually willing to put in this kind of grit that's necessary. So yes, they may be getting paid more, but they're also taking so long in terms of getting their projects done. Maybe it's because there are new cultures that these companies and these, places demand. And this is why you're seeing that. And let's be honest, and I've always kind of thought this, why do these companies who pay a lot of their developers a lot of money have external studios in a lot of countries where they don't get to pay as much in terms of money and the laws are quite different from where their main studios are established? Could it be that they realize, like, if we do not support these studios with some of these other, developers across the board, we're not going to get these games shipped out? That's just a question in my mind. I've always kind of thought about it one way or the other. Or it could be just a time zone thing. They want to leverage time zones all over the place. But, man, when I see things like this on social media, I have to say, man, Sony is cooked. In fact, the big companies, if they don't have sustainable ways of making money with their games, when they finally drop them at the end of the day with all that development cost, they're in real financial, upheaval. Again, I'm not saying that workers shouldn't get paid. However, I'm just saying that If we look at the old school developers, because they're on YouTube now, they're on Twitter, they talk, you can hear their tone. You can know that these guys are no nonsense folk. Like, you can tell that these guys were willing to pretty much push the envelope at those times. And they've said it, they let it out. It slips. You can tell. Like, just watch the Freudian slips all over the place. It's not the same kind of, frame of mind. It's not the same kind of mindset. I mean, I saw even, I think it was Bruce Shredley or so, they were showing some, pushback of Uncharted 2 or maybe somebody else. And he said the Uncharted 2 opening, the Nathan Drake scene with the train and, all of that stuff. He said, we were going crazy. We thought we would lose our minds because we had something to prove. I don't think we have that frame of mind anymore. I just watch them and I just smile and I'm just like, man, why are these folk not mentoring a lot of the young people these days? Because yes, we're not saying make them unhealthy. We're not saying let them, work to death. We're just saying they need to have what I think is an infusion of passion from those who made gaming in a way that inspired them to get into gaming itself. How did we get on this topic? Oh my gosh, what kind of rabbit was that? Anyways, Cat Bailey's article. Goodness gracious. The vast budget that allowed PlayStation's characteristic best in-class visuals and a library of cinematic cutscenes we'll never see meant that while Rivals were released free to play, Sony chose to sell the game for $40, combined with low consumer awareness and tons of free quality alternatives. Blah 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 blah. All this stuff is just, for the most part, I see not really an infusion or a presence of a lot of that passion that's the same as a lot of the old school, not even old school, but just a little bit ago developers who came up from when the industry was, kind of getting to that point where everybody was cutthroat. I mean, would you believe it now that Jade Raymond is going to be leading the development of Fair Games? I mean, this is the lady that brought Assassin's Creed. I mean, I don't know what's going on with a lot of these companies and they're chasing for live service. You just need the right passionate people to be in the right positions. I don't know though. We'll see how Fair Games runs, but man, I just feel kind of weird, like thinking about all of this, because she is one of those of that mindset. So I'm hoping though that, maybe Fair Games might hit in that regard. But again, when you think about live services and all of what's going on, again, it might be all of that passion and all of that effort and, whatever put in the game that's probably coming out of the wrong time. There just sometimes things don't just hit. And I think this is probably one of those times where PlayStation is probably facing, a lot of those setbacks. It's unfortunate. I could tell you guys that there's no celebration in this for me, because if they're continuing to go all this way, these are situations that, for the most part, some of them are beyond their control. They gotta adapt and follow with the market in terms of all of these things, but it doesn't seem like it's hitting. So I guess PlayStation players, when it's all said and done, are going to be playing Xbox games. That's what's going to happen for the meantime. They can keep making single player games, but seems like a lot of these other live service games are just going to keep eating away from their profits until they get it right. If they have the opportunity to get it right without going irrelevant in the time being. Talk to me in the comment section, guys. Peace out.